And I'm about to introduce you. Hold on. So, how's everybody doing? Thornwood High School students and staff, how's everybody doing? Everyone's doing good.
Really well, yeah.
Good.
That's good. That's good. So joining us today is a special young lady. She is a first ballot Hall of Fame attorney, co-partner of the famed Geragos and Geragos law firm, New York branch. Let's give a huge, huge, huge warm South Side of Chicago welcome to the legendary, incomparable attorney, Tina Glandian.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you guys today. I have a special place in my heart these days for Chicago. So I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but it's nice to meet everybody virtually and to join you.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here at Thornwood High School, home of the Thunderbirds, and some of the brightest legal eagle minds in the country that's joining the call today. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So I'm going to start off with the first couple of questions. Anybody that has a question, please type it in the chat, or if you want to request saying your question, conveying your question in person, live, just let me know in the chat, and then we'll proceed from there. So my first question is, who was your law inspiration, your legal eagle inspiration growing up as a kid?
So growing up as a kid, I went back and forth on wanting to be a lawyer. There was movies I would watch once in a while, and I would see a passionate closing argument that was always very compelling to me. But I didn't have, one specific person that I really followed. And to be quite honest, I wasn't sure when I first enrolled in law school. I was a little confused at that time as to what I wanted to do with my future and my career. I knew I had always been interested in the law from a young age, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if that was just my fallback. And so I decided to enroll in law school and to get my JD and then do something else with it. But as soon as I started law school, it was my first criminal law class. I was fascinated by the law. And I realized this is probably something I might want to do. And I got very fortunate that year because I met Mark Geragos. I got an internship for the summer. And as soon as I started the summer internship, I knew that this was absolutely what I wanted to do. I loved the law. I was fascinated to learn, to practice. And I was at a firm that made it very easy for me to love it because we always had interesting, exciting cases, and Mark was such a mentor to me. And so he, took me under his wing from my initial start in the beginning of law school. And I kind of, he mentored me, he continues to mentor me. And so it's been a great journey.
And I would, before I dive into my next question, congratulations on your 15-year anniversary at Geragos and Geragos.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know it seems like a lifetime. I almost don't remember a life before Geragos and Geragos. I started at such a young age at the firm, and so pretty much my entire adult life and career has been there, and I can't see myself practicing anywhere else. So thank you.
Do you recall your first ever case that you presided over for Geragos and Geragos?
Well, the first case that I got involved in, I got very lucky. Again, when I started that summer internship, Mark was actually, he had just started a big trial, and it was a lengthy trial over the summer months. And so I joined him in that trial, which was really just amazing firsthand experience. Most law students who get an internship don't get that sort of direct access, especially to somebody of Mark's caliber. And he was in trial, and I got to pretty much shadow him and go to court every day. And I didn't know a whole lot back then, but that was my first case. It was a big white collar case out of Orange County in California. and I'm from California, so I practiced there for the first 6 or 7 years of my career. And so that was, yes, I'll never forget that case. It made a huge impact, but I was very fortunate to be going to court with him every single day and to really see it from a perspective that usually at that point in your career, you don't get that type of exposure. Usually when you're a law student, you're sitting in a law firm doing some more boring or tedious work until you gain a certain level of experience to be allowed to go to court. But I got very lucky to have been thrown into this trial and to be going daily with him. And so that was a great first look at the legal system and a trial.
You've been recognized as Southern California's rising star by the iconic Super Lawyers magazine publication for the last 7 years consecutively. What is it like to be recognized as one of the top attorneys in the world?
It's an honor. Obviously, I appreciate it very much, the recognition. The real joy I get out of what I do is practicing the law, helping people, getting to know my clients, getting great results for them. That's, the real joy is in that. However, obviously, recognitions like this are an honor, and it's always nice to be appreciated and recognized. So.
Did you have a particular, Thornwood High School has a wonderful civics program. Did you have a particular civics teacher or professor at the high school level that pushed you that extra mile to become the success that you are today?
Unfortunately, actually, I was really pleased to see that you guys offer a specific course in civics. We didn't have that at my high school, and I don't want to age myself, but that was, some years ago. So it's very fortunate that your school offers that. And unfortunately, I didn't have that course or that sort of direction, but I think it's a huge advantage to everyone in your class. And the fact that they're providing that in the curriculum, I think is a huge advantage.
What has been your number one motivation in being an attorney? Your number one motivation at the very beginning for you?
I always liked, I've always had kind of a soft spot for the underdog in various situations outside of the law. If there was somebody getting bullied, if there was, a situation where somebody, the odds are against them, that's always been something that's appealed to me, and I've wanted to help. And so with criminal defense, you get to do that. Typically it's the government who's charging your client with a crime. They have the whole power of the government, and it's your client as one sole individual, and they need an ally, they need a friend, they need a voice. And so that's always appealed to me, and it's always been an honor to represent someone and to be their voice and to let them allow you to tell their story and to stand up for them and represent them. So that to me is the most rewarding part of what I do.
What did you major in at California, San Diego?
So I majored in communication, and I minored in film and video, which is a little bit different than what I do. I always had kind of some creative interests too, which is why I went back and forth on whether the law for me was necessarily what I wanted to do. But you actually get to be very creative with the law. So, in taking, in a trial, in a case, you have all the evidence that you're looking at, and you get to decipher what's helpful and to tell the story and to tell the narrative of your client. So you can get creative with that. I think it gives me kind of both an equal right brain, left brain balance, which I love. But also to mention, the beauty with law is you can really major in anything you want and go into the law. There's really no major that you have to take, and you can even decide at a later point in your life that you want to go to law school, and you can always do it.
Oh, absolutely. While attending Loyola Law School, what were your duties and responsibilities as an articles editor? So
law review was a huge advantage. Most people dislike law review. It's very, very technical. So they teach you all.
Meticulous, yeah.
Exactly. So they give you what's called a blue book, and it shows you how every citation, when you write a pleading that you're going to submit to the court, if a comma, it's so detailed where it tells you if a period needs to be italicized, if the quotation comes before or after the semicolon. It's very specific. However, it was a huge asset because legal writing is such an important part of being a lawyer. And I know it's not everybody's strength, that it is a strength of mine, and I've always enjoyed it, and I'm very detail oriented. So it wasn't as tedious for me, I think, as some people. I know certain people who were in law review, who were editors, disliked it. I always liked perfecting it and getting it right, but it just gets you instant credibility with a judge when your work is, unfortunately, when you start practicing the law, you realize there's a lot of sloppy legal work that gets submitted, and your work really stands out when you pay attention to detail, when you do the citations in the absolute correct way. So for anyone who goes to law school, I highly recommend joining law review. Again, it's maybe not the most fun thing to do for a year or two when you're in law school and dealing with all the kind of tedious citations. However, once you learn it, it becomes second nature. So for me now, when I write something, I don't have to think twice about where the commas, where the punctuation, how to do it properly. And it really does set your work apart from many other attorneys who submit, briefs with improper citations, and it'll get recognized by a judge.
Marcia Baker in the chat has a question. While you were in college, at any point did your major ever change?
So I enrolled in college as, I'm trying to remember what the term was at the time. I believe it was undecided, and you're able to start. I wasn't sure after high school what I wanted to do. So I enrolled initially as undecided, and then I made the decision to go into communication, and I didn't change it at that point. And communication was one of those broad areas where initially when I chose communication as my major, I still wasn't exactly clear on, whether I was going to go to law school or what I wanted to do. And communication was broad enough to, I think, just teach me great skills that I could apply to whatever career I decided ultimately, and has been very helpful in the law.
How do you determine, one of the other students has a question, how do you determine whether or not your law firm takes on a case? What goes into that decision-making process?
So again, I'm very fortunate to be at the firm I'm at because we have no shortage of business. Like any other business, there's many lawyers out there who have to take whatever cases come in. So, if you do criminal defense, anyone that calls, for a criminal case you take, or civil cases you take, whatever. Fortunately, we have, no shortage of business. We actually have to turn away most of the people that contact our firm because we don't have enough manpower to take on all of those cases. So oftentimes we refer cases out. So for us, for criminal cases, we, as long as somebody can afford to hire our firm, we typically accept the case. If there's for some reason something that, we strongly feel that this would not be a good client or case, we might turn that down. But for the most part, again, the theory behind criminal law in this country is that every single person is entitled to a defense. Innocent or guilty, despite what the charges are, everyone deserves a fair defense. But that said, we also do a lot of pro bono work. There's, oftentimes clients that can come in that may not be able to afford us. However, we feel strongly about the cause, or, we really sympathize with the client. And so we'll make decisions all the time to make an exception, to either give them a very reduced fee or to do something on a pro bono basis because we really want to help the client or take on the case.
How important, especially for a high school student or someone in their, or a youth in their early stages of their undergrad, how important is time management and having that balance to juggle that aspect and study law? How important is time management?
Time management is definitely is very important. I won't lie to you. I always was a procrastinator. I was a procrastinator in high school and college. I typically waited till, somewhat the last minute. I would sometimes pull all-nighters to get work done. Obviously, I've gotten much better with time management as I've gotten older. And, with the law, you have so many deadlines and you want to make sure you give yourself adequate time. So the sooner you can kind of, perfect those skills of knowing how long it's going to take you to do something, giving yourself not just that much time, but a little extra, because there's always, last minute, sometimes your computer crashes, something doesn't print right, so you want to make sure you give yourself a little breathing room so that you don't miss deadlines. So I think that the sooner you can kind of figure out a good system that works for you. And it's always different for different people, but, you know, just know your own self, and it ends up being a little bit of trial and error. You know, sometimes you'll miss a deadline and then you'll learn from that how to manage your time better so that it doesn't happen again in the future.
In your 15 years with Geragos and Geragos, what has been the strangest, most bizarre case that you were ever associated with?
Wow, the strangest, most bizarre case. You know, we have such a broad range of cases that I've, you know, been involved with since the time. I remember the one that just comes out and jumps to mind is years ago, there was a case at the San Francisco Zoo where a tiger had jumped over the enclosure and attacked two brothers. I don't know if you'll remember that case. I believe the brothers' names were the Dollywall brothers. And that to me just seemed like a very surreal case. It was just highly unusual. It's the kind of things you sometimes might read about in, you know, in law school, but you don't typically get those types of cases. So that was kind of a bizarre case. And, you know, there was issues about liability as to the height of the fence was not as high as it should have been. And, you know, this was a civil case, but it was certainly kind of a bizarre but very interesting case.
Wow, I would definitely say so. Wow. What ever since mid-March and for the most part, especially in Chicago and some suburban districts, we've been remote learning since Tuesday, March the 17th, so mid-March, and we're still, for the most part, remote learning. What are some of the, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, what effect has that had on your profession within the short term, as far as hearing cases, presiding over cases? Are there any motion hearings live via video Zoom? What effects do you see short term and also long term?
So personally speaking, you know, my career started in California. I was initially working at the Geragos firm in Los Angeles, and I was there for about 7 years. And my schedule when I was at the LA firm was very regimented. I was in court almost every morning at 8:30, and then I'd go to the office and I'd have a full day at the office, and we would work Saturdays usually too. So I was, you know, I was used to the office life about 6 days a week. Then at some point in my career, I had kind of an itch to move to New York City. Again, Mark, being the amazing mentor that he's been, told me, you know what, if you want to move there, if you wanted to go take the New York bar exam and open the New York office, be my guest. And so that was a very welcome surprise to me. I think I asked him partially not thinking he would let me do it, but he was, you know, fully behind me and really encouraged me. And so that's exactly what I did. I took the New York bar exam and moved to New York City. And at that point, our office was under construction. We were starting from scratch here. And so I got used to remote working long before COVID. So during, you know, I remember initially it was a challenge, not having the social interaction of the office that I was used to. And also, you know, nothing to break up your day. Typically at the office, you would go in, you'd have a few hours, you'd go to lunch, you'd come back. You kind of had a bit of a structure. And when you're kind of on your own schedule all day, everything blends together. So it started off as a challenge, but after about a year or so, I got really into the hang of working remotely. And I became very productive. There's a lot of things I liked about remote working, which I couldn't do when I was, you know, in the structured firm life back in LA, which was, you know, halfway during the workday, I can go take a workout class and then come back and get back to work. And that, you know, instead of taking a lunch break, or, you know, I could kind of do things on my own schedule, which I really started to like. So at that point, once even our New York office opened, I continued to, you know, some days I would work in the office, other days I would choose to work remotely, because at that point it worked for me. So by the time, you know, COVID happened, as far as the day-to-day, I was already used to remote working, so it didn't really impact me in that sense. However, you know, the court appearances, all of that now has been remote. And to be honest, you know, there's been a lot of advantages to it, in the sense that, for instance, for, you know, my Chicago case, typically for a court appearance, that would almost take me 2 days. If I had to appear in front of the judge for something that would take 30 minutes, that would usually take me almost 2 days. I'd have to travel there, usually stay the night. So I wouldn't, because you don't want to risk it in the morning, go to court in the morning, make my 30-minute appearance and then travel back. And so you really kind of lose 2 days. Now, from wherever I'm at, and I don't even have to be in New York City, I could be, really anywhere I want to be, I call in for that 30 minutes. So it's much more efficient in that sense. However, it depends on obviously what you're doing. It has slowed down a lot of cases, things that were, moving forward because of the fact that you can't be, having juries, you can't be having crowds. So there have been some delays in that sense. So depending on, who your client is and their interest in resolving something quickly, that could be frustrating. I do have a judge in New York now who is going to be the first judge doing trials, and he's trying to set one of my matters for trial in November. So it'll be interesting. We don't know how that process will be with jurors coming into the courthouse. He's represented that everything will be socially distanced, but it's a little unclear whether, you're going to be examining witnesses wearing masks, and how jurors typically sit obviously in the box close together. So it'll be interesting to see how a trial is conducted under, these conditions. But I guess for now, that's the best that we can do.
Yeah, because I was always wondering, because I watched a recent episode of People's Court with Judge Marilyn Milian, and she's presiding over, obviously it's TV, so she's presiding over cases live via Zoom. It's a big screen, and then the plaintiff and the defendant is also joining live via Zoom, and the only person in the courthouse is the bailiff. So that part was kind of weird. So that's why I was asking your perspective on short term and long term.
Yeah, long term, one of the things that I think will be a benefit is the fact that, until now, there was very little that you could do in any case without physically being present. So even matters where all parties agreed could be continued to another date, you would have to appear physically in front of the judge to make that request. It was very rare to be able to call anything in or to, do anything like a Zoom. The courts weren't equipped with it, and they just weren't allowing it. So certainly for the long term, I do think some of these virtual, appearances that we've been doing, and now that everyone is equipped to do everything virtually, I think this will be a benefit. Again, I think it'll just cut down on time and resources and efficiency to be able to, for something especially that's, simple, you're going to be talking to the judge for a minute or two, making a simple request. You don't have to be driving to court and, dealing with it in person when, again, it never made a lot of sense that they would not allow you to do that by phone or, video conference previously, but I think that will change long term.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What are the current next steps in the Jussie Smollett case? You're currently working on getting the charges dropped as we speak right now, correct?
Correct. So we just filed a new motion. We filed several motions. That this is one of those frustrating cases that, because it's Jussie Smollett, I think in one of the briefs I had said, if this was John Smith, this would have been dismissed. But because it's Jussie Smollett, because the whole world is watching, this is not going to get dismissed on grounds where it really should. So I think legally we've had the better argument in a lot of these motions. However, at this point, because of especially the previous dismissal, I think everyone just kind of wants this to get to trial. So I think that's working against us. I do think, again, we have some very strong motions, and we never should have ended up where we are today. He should not be facing these charges a second time. Again, this would not happen in any other case, but for the fact that it's him. And it's really surprising to look back, and in January of 2021, it'll be 2 years since the incident. And it's really hard to believe that this is being dragged on the way it is. And, I think everybody will be surprised once this gets to trial. I think nobody wants this to go to trial more than Jussie does. he's maintained his innocence from day one. There's been nothing to show, to corroborate what these brothers have alleged that he did. And there's a lot of reasons to doubt their credibility and their story. But despite that, 2 years later, we're just watching this get dragged out. And obviously COVID was frustrating to him because this would have probably gone to trial sooner had COVID not happened. But obviously, things have been on hold, and his case is not a case where, in the criminal justice system, the cases that are getting priority now are people who are in custody, who are charged with, serious crimes, and they're not out on bail. And so there's an interest to hear those cases first. Somebody like Jussie, who's, he's not even out on bail right now. He's just out because the judge recognized this time around that he's not a flight risk, he's not a danger. And so that type of case with kind of low-level charges is not getting priority right now in the system.
Do you feel as though over the years you've represented, like Jussie Smollett, Ice Cube, Colin Kaepernick, Chris Brown, so many celebrities over the years, do you see that dynamic being consistent as far as certain motions, certain aspects of a case being strung out longer than necessary because of a person's celebrity status?
Absolutely. We always say, people often talk about celebrity justice, and in many cases, it's quite the opposite. As I'm saying in Jussie's case, a lot of times, if the person is not a known figure, no one's really watching or paying attention to the case. And oftentimes, again, prosecutors are much more lenient, or whoever, whether it's the judge or the prosecutor, the case is not getting as much scrutiny. So it is actually easier to get more favorable decisions in those types of cases. When somebody is high profile, everyone feels more, everyone gets outside pressure to make an example of this case. They know the world is watching. So often those cases work against the celebrity, and they're not getting any favorable treatment. If anything, they're getting the opposite. Again, there's many cases, and in Jussie's case, one of the things we had pointed out was very close in time to when this incident initially happened back in early 2019, and when he was charged. There was a similar case where a girl in a nearby park had alleged somebody had either stabbed her, or there was some crime she alleged, and it turned out that it was false, and they never charged her with making a false police report. Nobody cared about this, and it just went unnoticed, even though she had made more serious accusations against somebody, and it was proven on surveillance that it didn't happen, and yet she wasn't charged. So here we had a perfect example of somebody like Jussie, who is a celebrity, who's a known figure, who they prosecuted, wanted to make an example of, and then somebody very close in time, I think it was weeks, who wasn't prosecuted because nobody knows her case, and nobody had to make an example of her. So
how is Mr. Smallett's spirits right now? Is his spirits up?
His spirits are okay. Again, he is very fortunate. He has a lot of he has very strong family ties, and he has a lot of friends who have really stuck by him. And even, what you see in the media is not always accurate. He does have a huge support system, and many people who are standing by him and who believe in him. So they help keep his spirits up. Obviously, this is very frustrating to him. Not only the fact that he was charged the first time, but then the recharging of him. After all this time, the special prosecutor came forward about a month ago and filed a report saying, now that we've spent a year investigating, everything that previously happened, we confirmed the fact that there was absolutely no wrongdoing in between either the defense, Mr. Smallett's team, and the state's attorney's office in the dismissal. So they recognized that this was actually a dismissal because the state's attorney decided they wanted to dismiss the charges for their own reasons, which we believe is because they recognized that the evidence was weak. But there was no wrongdoing. They investigated for 1 year, made that conclusion. So for him, it's very frustrating that he's still going through this. Obviously, COVID delayed things. So he just wants to clear his name once and for all and move on with his life. And he can't do that right now because, again, he was charged again. Now things are delayed. By the time he gets a trial, again, it's a lot of time lost for him at a point in his career where he was, he was on the rise. His music career was taking off. He was directing episodes of, he wasn't just starring in Empire, he was actually directing episodes too. He had a Broadway musical, you know, he had a lot of things in his favor that he was really disappointed to lose because of this. Obviously, you know, Empire, and then he lost the Broadway musical. You know, his career has pretty much been on hold. And at his age, where, you know, these 2 years have been critical, it's been highly frustrating, but he, you know, again, he's resilient and he does his best to kind of stay optimistic and just know ultimately he will clear his name.
Absolutely, and he does have a phenomenal family support base, so definitely. I have 2 more questions because I definitely want to be cognizant and respectful of your time, because I know your plate is full the rest of the afternoon. I have a student question. What is a day in the life of Attorney Glandian like? I'm pretty sure
day in the life,
you're up 20 hours out of the 24-hour day, but how does that dynamic look like?
So my days are really varied, as I say. Some days I go into the office. Some days I just work remotely, depending where I'm at. You know, prior to COVID, I would travel frequently between LA, New York, and then wherever else I might have a case, like Chicago. So I was on the road, you know, quite a bit. But you know, I'm a night owl, so my nights are usually I do my best kind of search writing when it's late at night, when I know the phone's not ringing, I'm not getting emails. But I'm kind of, you know, I'm on a lot. So, you know, there's always emails and calls coming through. So it really depends. If I have a deadline, sometimes I hole up and, you know, I'm really busy doing a motion or something. Other days, again, if I have court hearings, I have meetings with new clients or, you know, follow-up clients. So it's kind of very, some time in the office, some time in court, and then meeting and talking to, you know, following up on matters for them.
And my last question is, what are your thoughts on the state of Kentucky decision on the charges or lack thereof charges on the police officers in the Breonna Taylor case? If you had any thoughts or concerns with that verdict.
Yeah, so our firm actually handles many excessive force cases against the police. That's really, you know, an area that's very challenging. And it's challenging in those cases to oftentimes prove there's, you know, certain immunities that come into place. But it's obviously, it's such a shame in these cases, because I think the law just needs to be reformed to make it a little easier when there's, you know, it goes both ways. I understand, you know, obviously officers it's a difficult job and, you know, they're putting themselves out there, but there's entirely too many cases where, you know, innocent lives are lost in kind of a heat of the moment decision. And it's very hard to actually get that before a jury and to get that, you know, because of a lot of these protections that come into place. So I'm hopeful that there are reforms that kind of make that easier moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, joining Thunderbird Nation here at Thornwood High School. Definitely taking time out of your busy schedule. I know we have students that are in other classes right now in the law and civics class program that had a few questions for you that they would like to ask. Is there a way I can email you later on?
Absolutely.
A handful of those questions.
Definitely. I'll be happy to answer any questions by email after this.
And I believe our assistant principal is on the call. AP Brown, are you there?
I am here. I just want to say thank you very, very much. You know, this was a slightly smaller group than we usually have because we wanted to ensure that our students who were able to join the and we're not in class, we're able to talk with you, you know, specifically, and to just hear someone's expertise who's working in law actively, really seeking to take care of the needs of the people is really, really invaluable. And so I'm sure that our students who are able to join the call are very, very thankful. We had a couple of our Mighty Thunderbird counselors on the call as well. And just those who weren't able to attend, being able to receive this information for you will just help them as they set intentions for me moving forward, you know, in their careers, their high school careers and beyond. So thank you very, very much. We really appreciate you.
Of course, it's my absolute pleasure. So hopefully some of this information will be helpful to the students and helpful and or inspirational, but it's my pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
And,
And thank you, Mr. Coleman. Oh, okay.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead, AP.
I was just going, you know, I have to shout you out because we can't do any of these things without you. We really appreciate you.
No, I appreciate it. Attorney, please don't be a stranger. Hopefully you'll be able to join us again, you know, at some point over the next month or so. And please keep up the great, inspiring work. You have such a huge fan base with young ladies that want to study law at the college level and just throughout the city of Chicago as well. So please keep up the inspiring work.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the invitation to join you today. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Enjoy the weather.
See you soon.
Try to enjoy the weather.
Everybody.
Will do. Thank you. Bye.